All right, so give it up for Frank again.
Hello, everybody. You haven't heard me yet, so. I'm glad to play this song. This is a song from the 60s, done by a group called Quicksilver Messenger, and I took a little bit of liberty with this song and added my own verse about Cop City, so my apologies to Quicksilver Messenger. You poison my sweet water, you cut down my green trees. The food you fed my children was the cause of their disease. My world is slowly falling down, and the air's not good to breathe. And those of us who care enough, we have to do something. Oh, what you gonna do about me? Whoa, whoa, what you gonna do about me? Your newspapers, they just put you on. They never tell you the whole story. They just put your young ideas down. I was wondering, could this be the end of their pride and glory? Oh, what you gonna do about me? Whoa, whoa, what you gonna do about me? I work in your factories, I study in your schools, I fill your penitentiaries and your military too. And I feel the future trembling as the word is passed around. If you stand up for what you do believe, be prepared to be shot down. Whoa, what you gonna do about me? Whoa, whoa, what you gonna do about me? Now you're trying to build Cop City to keep the people in fear. On land you stole from the Muskogee with the terror of the Trail of Tears. You can train your occupying army and prepare for urban war, but the people of this country won't be bullied anymore. Whoa, what you gonna do about me? Whoa, whoa, what you gonna do about me? And I feel like a stranger in the land where I was born, and I live just like an outlaw, and I'm always on the run. And though you may be stronger now, my time will come around. You keep adding to my numbers when you shoot my people down. Whoa, what you gonna do about me? Whoa, whoa, what you gonna do about me? Thank you.
Let's give it up again for Frank, everybody. So now we're going to have our first speaker of the afternoon. Ben, who's a graduate employee, member of GU UAW, Local 6995, which Ben is applauding for, so we can give some applause for local. I think it's really important. Not a lot of people know that local is one of the only labor unions in the country that's explicitly stood in the struggle through a resolution against Cop City and for climate justice and dropping all the charges of the case. So that's a huge thing that happened. So Ben's going to speak a little bit, and Ben also studies anti-repression and repression throughout the U.S. left over time. So Ben's going to give some historical context and local context for this fight, and also perhaps, I don't know, speak on some of their experiences as an activist in the struggle. Thanks. Give Ben a round of applause.
Hey everybody. Great to see all of you. Really cool to be here.
To raise it.
Raise it a little. Thank you. So I'm going to be pretty brief. And I want to talk about what the relevance of what is going on in Atlanta is to us here in Connecticut. So first, we have to understand that the proposed plans for Cop City have immediate national implications. Policing around the entire country will be transformed by Cop City because the proposal is for police officers from around the country to go to Cop City to be trained. There's a national law enforcement exchange program that is proposed alongside Cop City for police departments from here in Connecticut, from other states, to go to Atlanta to be trained in the state-of-the-art urban warfare and counterinsurgency tactics that they're going to try to develop there. So how will policing be transformed? Police will become better skilled in protest suppression, in protest control, in tactics of urban warfare designed to repress progressive social movements and movements that challenge the status quo. And so that brings me to my second point. What's going on in Atlanta is relevant to Connecticut because the repression activists in Atlanta are facing, domestic terrorism charges, RICO, etc. This is a test case for how the ruling class, the state and corporate power structure, is planning to meet future protests and anti-racist progressive activism. We can see continuities in the repression of Stop Cop City activists and forest defenders with the repression of earlier movements, especially the Black Power movement and anti-war movement of the 1960s and 70s. I'll spare you some of that historical detail, but it's important to kind of see these kind of long continuities, but also what's different. But Connecticut is no stranger to police repression of protests. Let's think back to 2020. In June, after the murder of George Floyd spurred protests across the country, Connecticut community members organized a protest in Waterbury. Maybe some of you were there. Police responded in riot gear and raided the march, arresting 28 people, calling the protest an unlawful assembly. In Stamford in August that year, 5 protesters and a passerby were arrested and charged with inciting a riot during a peaceful demonstration in the Justice for Stephen Barrier movement. I know some of you were there. Stephen Barrier died in police custody in suspicious circumstances in 2019, but police saw the demands for answers in his case as enough to charge protesters with inciting a riot. The police in this country are completely unaccountable and seem intent on using their power and legalized violence to punish anyone who dares challenge their authority. Cop City would be a massive win for that aim. But it is not only the police who are behind Cop City. So who is trying to build Cop City? Cop City is being pushed by an alliance of state and corporate actors from nearly every sector of the capitalist class. So big tech, finance, Hollywood, retail, construction. There's a whole alliance of corporate and state interests, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, in building Cop City in Atlanta, Cop Cities in Chicago, in Pittsburgh, in these new police training facilities, urban warfare facilities around the country. So why? The reason is that they are trying to shore up their ill-begotten power and position in US and global society through force and violence. And so we know why they're trying to build Cop City now. The 2020 protests terrified the ruling elite in this country, looking down at the next decade as climate change exacerbates the lethality, social inequality. There will be more social unrest, more bottom-up challenges to the power structure. So their plan is to meet this crisis with force and violence. Rather than adopt the necessary changes to secure a sustainable, survivable future, they're trying to use the police and the military to secure their power, their wealth, their position, right? The very inequalities that actually drive the crisis. So who opposes Cop City? So opposing Cop City is a mass democratic movement of all different kinds of people dedicated to an ecologically sustainable future, free of state violence and built on community care. We can and will win the world we want. But the stakes are very high. But there are, as you'll learn today, many ways to get involved. So find the way that moves you, and I'm excited to have this conversation that we're gonna have today. Thank you.
Thanks to Ben. So the next speaker that we have is going to be Kelly from Mass Action Defense.
How's everybody doing?
Stop Cop City.
Stop Cop City.
And defend the Cop City protesters.
Drop the charges.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more on that angle of things, and speak some to what are the stakes of the kind of repression that they're bringing down in response to this. Mass Action Defense is about organizing people to take on the repression and criminalization of protest that's going on across the country. And that we need to do it in a mass way. We need to do it by stepping out of our comfort zone and actually talking to people we haven't talked to before about what's going on. And use the fact that they're increasing the kind of repression to actually mobilize more people to fight against it. I mean, the many aspects of the response that the state has had to the opposition to Cop City is a sharp escalation in repression in this country, especially kind of in the modern day. And Cop City itself is a representation of the increase in the militarization of the police, and increase in the ability of the police to, as Ben was talking about, respond to and deal with the fact that they don't have any solutions for the problems that are out here, and that they're preparing to be able to continue to go against the resistance that happens to the police brutality, to the destruction of the environment, and all of those things. So some of the sharp thing, I mean, this started, the increase really is punctuated by the murder of Tortuguita, who, when you look at all of the details, it's one of the first kinds of escalation that's happened like this. Shot 57 times, and according to the autopsies, most likely while he was sitting with his hands raised inside of a tent. It just kind of punctuates how determined they are to stop this from happening. So in addition, dozens of people that have been arrested, 30 or more that are charged with domestic terrorism charges, and now with the RICO indictments.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it's also dangerous.
They're trying to set precedent.
Exactly. I mean, what's concentrated in the RICO indictment is nothing less than trying to set a precedent for making basic protest, illegal. And if you look at the content of that, I'm not going to be able to break it all down. I was actually trying to pull some nuggets, but that's a little bit harder to do on the Metro North than I thought it was going to be coming up here from New York. But it starts with the entire thing is 200 pages, and the first half of it is a pretty bad diatribe, political diatribe against anarchism, against collectivism, against What are some of the other things? Mutual aid, you know, and solidarity. That these are the things that united people, and that's the conspiracy. They're trying, all of these people are trying to further this aim, you know, and RICO, racketeering charges, this was originated, if people don't know, to go against the mob, to have a way to like charge like the top people that never get their hands dirty, that for all the things that are being carried out by the lower guys or people that may not even know each other. So they've put together an indictment that, while there are some things that arguably you could say are actual crimes, the vast majority are things like posting stuff online, getting reimbursed for $15 worth of camping equipment, or getting reimbursed for being able to do a presentation about what's going on in Cop City. So they've laid out this thing where all of these different things, handing out flyers, calling up some of the vendors that are responsible for it. This is now intimidation. This is all about furthering this overall goal that these people have. So this is what they're trying to do, and this is like a precedent that if they get away with like convicting people on this basis, it will mean some serious things in terms of like people's ability to like go up against this in the future. But on the other side, it also, the stakes in terms of like if we don't allow that to happen are also pretty high, and can be a real victory, and can actually like, it can be a way to like spread even further the struggle against Cop City itself, because you're dealing with all of those. If we actually go out and expose to people what it is that they're doing, you know, and that was, again, coming back to what I started with a little bit earlier. I think that part of what's needed with all of that is everybody stepping outside of their comfort zone. I mean, amongst like the activist community or whatever, people know what's going on there. But you go much outside of that and people don't understand it. You know, you go out, you know, on the street and talk to people in various neighborhoods, and people don't know what's going on. College campuses, you know, amongst the activists there, sure, but in terms of like really getting in and like explaining to people what's going on, there's a need to like step outside of your comfort zone and talk to people who may not agree with you, and explain to people what it is that's going on. Sorry, let me look at my various notes here. So with this escalation, I mean, the role of the police has never been about protecting people. The role of the police is about protecting this society and from people that would challenge it, or just people that get in the way or are no longer useful. You know, we're starting a campaign on Rikers Island and what's going on with people there, and 50% of the population has some kind of mental health issue, mental health diagnosis, which makes it like the largest mental health facility in the United States, with absolutely or very little services for that kind of thing, which is part of what's led to like multiple deaths. But the point is that it's about people that are being like warehoused, forgotten, and I'm losing my train of thought, sorry. So they have no solution to like what it is that's going on, and that's why it is that they need these kind of like the Cop City training to like build up their forces to be able to put down anybody that's going to challenge what's going on. And I think it's also just a general thing. Anybody that's anybody that has been part of protests long enough, and the Cop City and definitely here, it seems like there's different generations that have come together and have been inspired by what's going on down there. You know, if you stand up against it, especially if you're determined, as they have been, they're going to come after you. So there's a whole question of like how to build a defense of the people that are like doing this, to both broaden it in society, but also so that they don't get away with this kind of thing. Because they do it to intimidate, they do it to try to break people up, they do it to scare people from going out there. Now somebody has to like, you know, if I go to a concert in support of this, if I do my own concert in support of this, am I gonna be arrested with these kind of charges? Which is why there's an importance to like highlight and build a movement, not just around Cop City, but around the defense of the people that have been fighting for it. And to spread that and explain to people what it is that's going on. You know, so, and I think that especially like for those that aren't in Atlanta, that's one of the ways that we can really support it. You know, I know in New York, we're talking about doing some presentations in, you know, setting up presentations that can go into classrooms and stuff like that. Really broadening it out to like speak to people about what's going on that wouldn't know otherwise. And that I think is the kind of thing in terms of like, how do we make this really a mass question? Is it has to be that kind of, we have to stop talking to the same people. We have to stop like just going to the people that already know what's going on and have to like go broadly in society and argue for like why it is that people need to support this and support the people that are like being persecuted because of it. So I don't know, I think that there's gonna be questions and answers later if people have any questions on any of that. But if anybody's interested in linking up with Mass Action Defense to be part of like finding the ways that we can raise the funds, spread the word and all of that, then let me know. You can sign up in the back.
The next speaker that we have is Paul. Yes, you. Paul is a community member in this area and the father of one of the co-defendants of both the domestic terrorism charges and the RICO charges. So we really want to support him and his family.
My wife was the one with the prepared remarks. Unfortunately, she's at the hospital with someone. And when I got out of the car and saw Evan, all of a sudden I would realize that I was the one speaking. So on my way up here, I got a couple of thoughts. When my daughter was arrested, I immediately drove down to Atlanta the following day. And I didn't know pretty much anything about Cop City or anything at all. I read a couple of articles that night. I was wondering how she got down there, and that's when I realized our car was also down there. But that was all right. I don't know, I'm sure I would have said yes anyway. And when I got down there, I'll be very honest, I was actually pretty excited because I had a receipt in my hand showing that she was 10 miles away from Stop Cop City when all that action went down. I knew that there would be video evidence at the Walmart that she was shopping at that showed that she was not even present on the property when everything went down. And a few days later at the bond hearing, when that evidence doesn't come out, that's not the way it works. All the propaganda that we've been presented on the TVs and the movies, and whether it's comic books or whether it's action heroes, everything that I thought, my family thought, the way things would work naturally, did not work at all. And she was denied bond at that first hearing. And a couple days later, I drove home. And I really and truly, driving that car with 200,000 miles on it, besides the fact I didn't know if I was going to make it, I really never felt so alone. She's in jail. As far as I'm concerned, nobody cares. And I'm driving this old clunker home to my wife, who is in tears at home. And within a couple of days, I realized, Evan is sitting in my chair, and we weren't alone. That there were hundreds of people around us supporting us. And I cannot thank all of you enough. And fast forward a couple of months more, and I realized that not only are you supporting us, but we are supporting just a much larger movement for a much greater cause. And that it's not about just supporting those 61 defendants. You know, I've seen various headlines, calling this all sorts of different things, but this really is, if this goes through, as one of, I can't remember her name, someone's going to know her name, she's the one of the ministers down there who's most outspoken. Kiana Jones. She kind of gave an example that said, if she was in a book club with someone from New York and they shared thoughts, according to this RICO charge, they are involved in a conspiracy. And so literally it almost outlaws sharing thoughts. It outlaws sharing ideas. It outlaws having the same idea as a total stranger in some other place that you don't even know exists. And when you read through, as it was mentioned, those 200 and something pages, it's literally what it says. And so I just want to thank you all for being here. If my wife was here, she has a little bit different voice than I do, and she would say you're all fucking awesome. Thank you. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to ask. And please feel free, you can ask a very specific question to me. You do not have to just do things must be difficult or how are things going. If you'd like to know a very specific thing like what happened that night, what's it like in jail, what's it like with the lawyer, just anything at all, you don't have to kind of back off. Feel free to ask any specific questions that you have. I'd really appreciate answering them because I'm a teacher in a middle school. I've got about one person there that will listen to me. You're cheaper than therapy. So feel free to ask me any questions. And thank you again.
That was a great impromptu speech, Paul. You should consider a new career, maybe. Teaching, right? Listening to Paul's speech, it reminded me of an. Thank you. It just reminded me of talking to their family. And people like Kelly was talking about broadening the movement and the kind of effect that repression has on building a movement in the sense that people see the repression and want to organize against it. And I just remember a little get-together that Paul and Amy, his wife, had organized of their kind of close people, and they were facing a lot of backlash in the local community because there was right-wingers who were seeing this stuff, trying to dox the co-defendant and this sort of thing, and so they were really looking for comfort, and they invited me to this get-together because their family is not necessarily political people. They were just kind of had a lot of questions, and so then I was there, and I'm like an activist. I'm somebody that doesn't like the state too much, and and it was a really interesting opportunity experience to have these conversations, very much with people who were like, oh, our government does that? What do you mean, the arrests were arbitrary? But it was very educational, not just I think for family and friends of Paul's, but also for myself, because this is a very concrete struggle. This is a very immediate struggle, and it's a very it's a struggle that exposes a lot of the things that people often don't want to think about or aren't aware of. with regards to the way that the police function in this country, the actuality of our rights as so-called U.S. citizens and people who are kept out of citizenship, including undocumented people and people in prisons, incarcerated people. So I think that was a really informative experience for myself, and I think that there's a lot of similar experiences that are happening, specifically connected with the movement to stop Cop City and defend Weelaunee Forest, because so many people are affected, so many people who just wanted to express their right to protest or even just like attend a music festival are now caught up in this like really extreme repression. So I just wanted to share that also because it was a important experience for me, and I think has some lessons for all of us. So our next speaker is going to be my God, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name. Yes, you. Jamie Peck. My bad. So Jamie is speaking as part of the Block Cop City coalition. She's speaking with a presentation, and we're going to do some breakout groups that will be facilitated to kind of have some community discussions after the talk. So with